exhibit a painting outside South Africa during the course of the year prior to the Biennale, can it be used at the Biennale?
If they have to be life-size.
Can it only be in colour?
It has to be scientifically accurate.
What do you mean by decorative?
Are they going to have different sections?
So the question about categories, really there is no category in the exhibition at all. We've had judgments on very small plants that have got gold medals and very large paintings that have got gold medals. We look at a series of criteria, so it doesn't matter whether they're small or large or look quite different. So it is all part of the same thing. And the same thing applies with blowing up a small plant into a larger species, which was another question. Can you do that? Can you take a little buku flower and make it into a large buku flower? Yes, absolutely. Not a problem.
Yes, it's not necessary that the works are life-size. That's the bottom line. And the question about the size of the works relates only to the way that they are going to be hung in the room. We will make sure that works that need to be seen from nearby can be reached, and works that benefit from being seen from a distance will have the space. So we will take care of that issue, but there are no criteria for hanging different sized works or different content works. We need the name of the species, and I think possibly the family of the species, and in this case I think there's a requirement for its medicinal use, but that is the minimum that is required. At this stage there is no other information required. And of course the name of the artist.
Yes, about exhibiting outside of the country, especially if it's for a competition or something like that. So, for instance, if you were to be sending your work to the RHS and you wanted to compete with it there and then bring it to Kirstenbosch Biennale, I don't see any obstacle in doing that at all. It's just that we don't want it going from one exhibition to another around South Africa and then landing up as a sort of a third-hand picture at the Biennale. A question about whether the information about the plants needs to be on the painting or somewhere. And I think in the past what we've done is we've asked the artists to write a brief description on why they've chosen those particular works and a little piece that needs to go with it. And I think that is will also be featured in the actual catalogue, so that not only the judges but also the general public will understand why the artist has come to this point of producing these 4 works. So I think that answers that question, and I think it answers another question also about how much information should be on about the intellectual sort of aspect of grouping of the works. And I think that will also be discussed in that short piece that is written particularly by the artist.
Yes, you've also asked, there was also an issue about who verifies the botanical information, and it's done by botanists at the Institute. The organizer sends through all the images that have been selected and their accompanying information, and that is all checked by botanists at the Institute.
Yes. John did it last year as well, didn't
That's
you?
correct.
You were very much involved in that.
I think that there is there's one other aspect to this, and that is the display aspect. And that is, as John says, the artist does supply detailed information about why they've chosen a particular series of drawings or work. But the other question is, when the work is displayed, there will be some information about each one, and that will be done also by a botanist. So in other words, that the displays are done by one person and who has verified and checked all the information. And then that information will be up with each work, so that the public has an instant information about it. So one series of pieces of information from you will be in the catalogue, and the other will be underneath the work with your names.
Question I think John's going to answer was about how we got to selecting the works that were to go on to the exhibition, which ones were fine art, which ones were botanical, which ones should be in, and which ones should be out. And I think, John, you wanted to answer that.
Yes, Vicky, I'm getting a feeling from several of the questions that people are very concerned what the constraints are and are they working with them and will they be penalized. All I can say is that from my perspective, these are guidelines. We actually want the artists to explore and enjoy this as much as possible. The guidelines are there to enable us to exclude works that are blatantly out of the parameter. We're not going to exclude works that may be marginal if they meet many of the other criteria. So the onus is really on the artists. We're giving them guidelines. We want them to work and explore those aspects. Don't feel that we are going to be counting dots or lines on this thing and that's going to mean it's no longer there. And so the question again about fine art, it's again, we're trying to explore how to loosely define the categories here without excluding anything exciting, but without allowing in stuff that's not appropriate. Yes. So look at it in that parameters and that framework is what I would suggest to the artist. And if you feel that your work is borderline, then the onus is really on you to make sure we understand where you're coming from, and you may need to put a little bit more explanation or justification in. If it's very acceptable without any contentious issues, then you may need to put less information in. So that's all I can recommend.
Yeah, and also I think that we've got to remember this is an art exhibition. And it's for the public to see different people's expressions of things. Right. And so it has to be visually pleasing, number one, and it has to be very well done. Right. So whatever you choose to be your medium and whatever you decide to depict, it's up to you, as long as it's of good quality. And as a group, we have to select those that we think fall within that bracket.
I mean, I think we could summarize it, the 3 C's. It has to be competent, we'd like it to be creative, and it has to be eye-catching. So if you can meet those 3 criteria, I don't think there'll be a problem.
And of course, scientifically accurate.
Yes, those are all in the guidelines that are on the website. So people must go back and revisit them. Or even if you've been working on your work for a long time, you need to go back and just read those guidelines. Just make sure that you're in there.